They all left their mark on the world in one form or another. But even though they seemed larger than life, in the end, they faced mortality just like the rest of us. Here's a collection of last known photos of the most highly influential people. Number 1. That's Jimi Hendrix with his Black Beauty guitar, posing for a photo taken near London by his girlfriend Monica Danman just one day before he died. You won't find Hendrix in a dilapidated state prior to his death, as it was sudden, and he was only 27 years old. Hendrix died on September 18, 1970, from complications related to drug use and alcohol. A friend claimed that it was his mixture of red wine and lager that led to him over-drinking, but the fact that he took 18 times the recommended dosage of sleeping pills certainly also had something to do with it. Number 2. Princess Diana was of course famous for her marriage and divorce of Charles the Prince of Wales, but also her charitable efforts around AIDS and landmine victims. The European paparazzi couldn't get enough of the former princess, and on August 31, 1997, they were at it again. Diana had just finished dinner with her new boyfriend, Egyptian billionaire Dodi Al Fayed, at the Ritz in Paris. Her driver sped away at over 60 miles per hour to get away from the paparazzi, then promptly crashed into a pillar of the Pont d'Alma bridge. Diana died later that night, while Al Fayed and the driver Henri Paul, who was drunken on antidepressants, died at the scene. Number 3. Freddie Mercury wanted nothing more than to be left alone by the media in his final days, but because they came so abruptly, he never really had the chance. The King of Queens shocked the world on November 23, 1991, when he announced, amid heavy speculation, that he had AIDS. Mercury did everything he could to keep working and have his life remain as normal as possible, for a rock star anyway. However, when he couldn't conceal his illness any longer, he made the announcement and added, "My privacy has always been very special to me and I am famous for my lack of interviews. Please understand this policy will continue." The very next day, Mercury passed away. Number 4. Actress Brittany Murphy left us all shocked when she passed away on December 20, 2009, and there have been little in the way of answers since. Murphy was suffering from an apparent cold when she loaded her body up with over-the-counter medications, and later collapsed in her bathroom. The coroner's report tells us that Murphy, very oddly, died of pneumonia. What's especially odd about that cause of death is that her widowed husband died of the same thing just months later. Speculation among the family has endured, as they suspect everything from foul play to poisoning from toxic mold in the house. Number 5. James Dean loved his cars and was actually a race car driver between films. After purchasing his new Porsche 550 Spider, the Rebel Without a Cause star showed it to British actor Alec Guinness, who took one look at it and ominously said, "If you get in that car, you'll be found dead in it by this time next week." 1 week later, on September 30, 1955, James Dean was behind the wheel and headed to a race in California. He rode with a Porsche mechanic named Ralph Weatherick, who encouraged him to drive the new car to the race to break it in. According to reports, right before Dean flipped the car into a horrifying wreck, he said, "That guy's gotta stop, he'll see us." Number 6. We're not saying that Tupac is dead, but this is the last known photograph of the hip-hop legend. That man to the right of Tupac is Suge Knight, and when they met, Tupac expounded on some bad habits. After a fight broke out in a Vegas casino on September 8, 1996, Suge and Tupac took off and were shot by still unknown assassins. According to the first officer on the scene, he brought Tupac out of the car and placed him on the ground while he was bleeding. Tupac was trying to call for Suge, and the officer was asking Tupac who shot him. In true Tupac form, right before serenity took hold of him, he looked the officer in the eye and replied, "F you." Then he closed his eyes for the last time. Number 7. That's actor Heath Ledger on set for the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, but he's certainly more well known for the role that reportedly killed him, the Joker in The Dark Knight. Ledger poured his heart into the role and claimed that he only slept about 2 hours a night when he was on set. Friends had warned Ledger about mixing prescription medicines and sleeping pills, which is ultimately what killed him. Before his death, a man who'd played Joker before warned him about how dangerous the role was. After Ledger died on January 22, 2008, Jack Nicholson, the man who played Joker in 1990's Batman, simply said, "I warned him." Number 8. Biggie Smalls was on top of the world in early 1997 and had just released his second album. That man to the right is Bad Boy Records founder Sean Page Diddy Combs, as the two men attend a party hosted by Vibe magazine and Quest Records held at the Peterson Automotive Museum on March 8, 1997. The two attended an after-party that included guests such as Faith Evans and Aaliyah. They left the event in the early morning hours of March 9. Biggie was sitting in the front passenger seat of his SUV when a black Impala pulled up next to him and fired 4 shots into the car. Perhaps most well known about his murder is the fact that it has never been solved despite several eyewitnesses at the scene. Number 9. On January 28, 1986, the unthinkable happened. 73 seconds into the 10th flight of the Space Shuttle Challenger, it broke apart after an O-ring in the right booster failed, and exploded like a nuclear bomb in the sky. None of the passengers survived the televised tragedy. An investigation by NASA revealed that the crew may have been alive for several minutes after the explosion and made efforts to recover control. Part of that crew was astronaut Krista McAuliffe, who was going to be America's first teacher in space after the elementary school educator won a contest with over 11,000 other applicants. Number 10. Lucille Ball of I Love Lucy fame, and so much more, was last seen in public during the 1989 Academy Awards. It was her friend Bob Hope that convinced her to come. It didn't sound like she had a great time though, as she reportedly said, "No one cares what the hell he looks like, but everybody cares what I look like. God, I'm so tired of myself." Ball had been unhappy ever since her late husband, Desi Arnaz, passed 3 years earlier. In April 1989, she experienced chest pains and was forced to have open heart surgery. She was then confined to the first floor in-house and complained that she was living like an invalid. On April 26, 1989, one of her arteries ruptured and she died. But friends say she died of a broken heart. Number 11. Dale Earnhardt, pictured below with wife Teresa before the Daytona 500 on February 18, 2001, was such an aggressive NASCAR driver that he was given the nickname, the Intimidator. On the final lap of the race, he was in third place, right behind his son, Dale Earnhardt Jr. While many drivers were jockeying for position, Earnhardt's famous number 3, black Chevrolet was clipped by another car, catapulting Earnhardt into the wall on turn 4. A faulty seatbelt that was incorrectly installed at Earnhardt's insistence for comfort reasons snapped, causing him to hit his head on the steering wheel, which was the blunt force trauma that ended up taking his life. Number 12. Pictured here with the supercar which would be his last ride, Paul Walker was most notable for his association with exactly the kind action and danger which ultimately brought about his end. After getting his start as a successful child actor, Walker rose to broader fame in the wildly popular Fast and Furious movie franchise. One day in 2013, Walker climbed into the passenger seat of the Porsche Carrera GT shown here, driven by his friend and businessman-turned-racer Roger Rodas. The two never returned from the drive. After losing control of the car, the pair careened off the road, resulting in a fiery wreck. Tributes poured in the crash, forever linking the actor's indelible legacy with speed and danger. Number 13. After filming scenes for her Rock the Boat video in 2001, Aaliyah, only 22 at the time, boarded an ill-fated flight from the Bahamas. Shortly after takeoff, the aircraft crashed, killing all 8 passengers on board. At that point, the Brooklyn-born R&B singer was already a huge star. Famous on a one-name basis, like Cher or Madonna, the future was bright for the Aaliyah. Born Aaliyah Dana Houghton in Brooklyn, New York, Aaliyah scored her first record deal at the age of only 12. She was clearly on track for greatness. After a brief marriage to R. Kelly, Aaliyah's young career continued to gain momentum. In a too-brief career, the singer's super-catchy single, Try Again, even reached number 1 on the charts. Her influence is still felt today, with Canadian hip-hop icon Drake even sporting a tattoo of Aaliyah on his back. Number 14. This photograph was taken just moments before an assassin's bullet strikes Martin Luther King in the jaw on April 4, 1968. There is also a photograph of the aftermath that shows King after he had been shot, with Reverend Jesse Jackson and company pointing at the shooter, James Earl Ray. Ray fled the country but was later arrested in London and died in prison. As for King, he kind of foreshadowed his demise in a speech when he said, "I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land." Number 15. Aretha Franklin was such a fighter during her life it's a surprise that death was even able to claim her. The singer of A Natural Woman and Respect made her final public appearance during a show hosted by Elton John to raise money to fight AIDS. Franklin would succumb to pancreatic cancer at the age of 76 within 9 months of the performance, but evidently, she still brought the house down. Elton John later said, "She was obviously unwell, and I wasn't sure she could perform. But Aretha did and she raised the roof. She sang and played."